fly over yesterday?
No. We've been out for a couple weeks now, actually. So
really?
Most of the dates were in Germany, and then this back end in the UK. We had one date in the Netherlands and one date in France. The France one was another festival. It was the Void, or no, I'm getting my festivals confused. It was Silac Festival.
Oh wow.
This is actually the last date. We're heading home tomorrow.
Oh, do you miss home? Do you get homesick when you're traveling?
I mean, yes and no. Yes, almost cripplingly in one regard, but in another, for me, I feel a lot better when I'm out doing this, and so when I'm deprived of this for long periods, that's when I get really out of sorts. And I mean, I haven't found the balance quite yet, to be honest, but there's a lot at home that kind of keeps me balanced as well. Like, I miss my wife, I miss my dogs, I miss all of those things, and I'm going to squeeze them well past repair. But when I get home, I am very much looking forward to getting home, but also to be out and to be able to do this still is privately really important to me. So and especially after coming out and kind of relating experiences back and forth with other people who it goes beyond. I'm not really all that interested in entertainment myself. People who need this kind of thing, being able to maybe provide them with 45 minutes of something that was a necessity for them is important to me, and I sometimes still don't believe that I get to do that for people. So yeah, it's been great.
I'm really glad to hear that. That sounds like we talk to a lot of musicians, and I think that trying to find that balance is something that a lot of people are searching for. Yeah.
It drives, I think, some of the other band members of Ken Mode a little nuts, because nobody wants to be out as often as I do, I don't think. And I wish we could be out more often. I really respect they have lots of good reasons, and so I try not to be pushy about it. I wish we were out more than we are. I think that whatever makes it so that everyone within the band feels healthy and is out just as much as they're comfortable with is what I'm happy with overall. But as far as being homesick and everything like that, like, I don't know. I really do, especially for the time I'm on stage. I mean, time itself becomes a very different thing when I'm doing that, and I can't get that being at home doing anything else really. So, yeah.
Is it when you feel like the set lasts about 2 minutes? Is that how you feel?
No. It's stranger than that for me. I mean, it's outside of time, which is, I think, what I'm reaching for, is especially somebody who's operating within the realms of extremity to a degree. I think that a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people who are a little bit more serious about art as opposed to entertainment, are aiming for something a little bit more transcendent, which drives you to perform a certain way, to construct art a certain way that takes maybe a lot more out of you than putting together a band for fun does. Which I'm not, I'm not saying that that's a wrong thing or a bad thing. It doesn't interest me to do that. I don't do any of this for this is not a pleasure device. This is not what this exists for. And so obviously I'm going to have very specific and unique things that I'm pulling out of it, and they're a little intangible and kind of difficult to discuss specifically, but for me, if everything's gone well, there's a particular fix of experience that kind of comes part and parcel with playing live that I feel better for having access. So.
Do you want to explore the Psycards?
Okay, so sorry.
It's okay. Do you want to explore these? So basically, normally we pull 3 cards. Mm-hmm. We do them one at a time, and the first one is past, then we do present and future. Okay. So would you like to pull your past?
Yes. Okay. No. I saw there was an obvious one there, and I was going to pull that. Okay, face down?
If you want, yeah, we can turn them over one at a time, and then present.
I'm being a real contrarian about this.
No,
I'm trying
I love
not
it.
to pick the obvious.
Part of the interview is like to see how people pick up the
Yeah.
cards. I love that.
Well,
do you want me to hold your mic?
No. I'm gonna do this. I swear, without making a mess.
Oh, don't worry.
And then lastly, I am gonna
do it
pick
the
the
Ken
obvious
mode
one.
way.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. So let's start with the past. Feel free to turn that card over.
Okay. There we go.
Liberation.
Okay.
This is an interesting card. So
Okay.
basically, this card, what it depicts is there's two lovers on horseback, and they're escaping from essentially prison. But the key has been in the lock the whole time, so they were able to flee at any point they wanted to. And there's a rope on the ground. So this represents like breaking free of like something that was perhaps you were repressing yourself in the past, or something else was repressing you, and you allowed yourself to get out of that situation.
Okay. Wow. Okay. That is going to that will throw me for an immediate existential overhaul, or maybe not overhaul, but assessment to try to figure out what that could mean. That could mean a number of things.
It might not mean anything at all. It could be
but
that
I'd like
you
for it to
haven't.
mean something. That
It would be
more
cool
fun.
if it did. Yeah. It's an interesting card. It's not an easy one because sometimes you don't necessarily know that you've gone through that door, and there's like multiple portals here as well that you've gone through.
Yeah, I guess so. There's the yeah. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting card.
Okay.
Perhaps it's what you were talking about with needing to play more.
Yeah, that could very well be. And I mean, Ken Mode is not my only band. I'm in a number of bands, and I'm trying to find that in a lot of different areas of art. I mean, not even just with music, with a lot of different things. So, I would love to think that this means that I'm on my way to maybe that balance we were talking about, where I can, feel just right in all the different facets of life. I'd love to think that that's what that means. I don't know. But
Well, maybe that's you going home to your wife and your dogs.
that would be wonderful. I miss them an awful lot right now.
What kind of dogs do you have?
Right now, I see. It's funny. I'm still getting over this. My first dog that I ever had just passed away
I'm so
last
sorry.
September. Which is coming up on a year, but I'm just nowhere near being over it. It still kind of colors everything that I do right now. So I'm missing Blixa, who was a pug. He made it to 14 and a
That's
half.
really good for a pug.
It is, and so definitely counting our blessings. I wasn't out on the road for it, and and we did good by him, which is the important thing for me.
Yeah.
I miss him like crazy.
I have a tear in my eye.
Yeah.
That's really sad. I'm so sorry.
He's it's weird when everyone asks about my dogs because he's still
The forefront.
Well, he's still leading the pack to me. He was my first dog, so Blix is not with us anymore. But I have there's Patty, who is some kind of a mutt. We're actually not sure what she is. We inherited her from my brother when he passed away, and he had taken her off of somebody else's hands as well, who didn't really have a lot of information about her. She's got to be about 15 now as well.
Goodness.
She's a little bit older. She's kind of a little bit lab, a little bit. We think the bone structure in her head almost kind of suggests pit bull a little bit. I don't know whether that's true or not. We've never totally been able to get to the bottom of what Patty is. She's a weird, curmudgeonly, needy old lady. So there's Patty, and then there's Fenrez,
Nice.
who is a pug Boston mix, and I keep forgetting because he never stopped being a puppy and still is kind of a shithead. That he's getting kind of old too, because I think he's about 7 or 8 now too. We took him off of somebody's hands who couldn't handle him for a number of reasons, and he's been he's been a problem child for a long time now. He's taking. We love him to death, and we love all of his problems because none of them are overbearing. He's just really weird, and I'm not afraid to say out loud. Afraid to sound cruel. He's a very dumb dog. But we love him. So yeah, I'm missing both of them. I'm missing all 3, but I get to come home to 2 of them at least. So yeah.
Okay. Should we move on to the present?
Yes. I think I've talked about my dogs probably enough.
Maybe it's the dog cards. The liar.
pull?
So this is a card that pretty much every musician pulls. So it's about the masks that we wear on stage, perhaps in our lives, like the relationship we have with our inner world and the world we present to others. And it's a performance card as well because he's performing too. He's like dropped one of his like little.
Yeah, is that some kind of sack or something? Like
I think it's a pouch. Yeah,
it's a pouch. Yeah,
it's a pouch, and he's got like his gear as well, his equipment, which I suppose as musicians we all have. I think it's really interesting. I think what you were saying about how you're not an entertainment band. So perhaps this is like the card where this is not what you're not. When you come to a place where you're surrounded by people who may be operating on a different spectrum, and then there's people operating on the same spectrum where like they're at the more extreme end of like performance, I suppose.
Could be. I mean, there's an awful lot going on, and I don't know, especially now that I know that there's some Jungian connection to all of these things. I think I'm looking in different places for different things as well. Like I'm wondering, like how deep do these cards go in terms of like, is the floor significant? Is the everything is okay? So I asked the right question then, because I'm really curious about what's behind this curtain back here.
What's he concealing?
Yeah. So I have more questions than there are probably answers.
Again, it's about the inside and the outside, which I think is really, perhaps he's like right here.
Interesting.
Within the artwork.
Right.
Do you know what? Like, so there's all these portals.
Also matching. I guess would you call those pants tights?
Tights.
Matching
leggings?
Tights with the.
And then there's like the opposite colors as well.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Which is really interesting. I think his expression is fantastic. It's like this aggression there.
Yeah.
Whereas there's a neutrality to the mask.
We do have a reoccurring visual theme through our kind of resident artist Randy Ortiz, who does all of our designs and stuff. There is a reoccurring motif of really disconcerting smiling that happens.
Oh, like a Kubrickian style.
There's would I call it that? Well, I think that they've some of them have been a little different than others. They're not all matching necessarily. There is, I think the last smile we left on was one that doesn't even it is some of the features in it look like a smile, and some of them look like, I mean, what would be worse than a grimace? Like it's kind of somewhere between terror and suffering maybe, but it's also, there's some suggestions of a smile. So that's about where we're at as a band right now. But we have a reoccurring kind of ever since our record Loved, if you check that album cover, Loved followed immediately by Null, are both very smile oriented, and the smile seems to have contorted and turned into something a little amorphous by the time you get to our last record, Void. I don't take odd smiles lightly. So
that's really interesting. I like this like the biological behavioral aspect of smiling. It's like actually like a fear management response at times, which is really interesting.
And I feel if you're paying close attention, I think that the way folks contend with the day-to-day, the amount that you actually maybe mean a smile, or it's I wouldn't go so far as to say few and far between. It is for some people, actually. Let me immediately walk that back. For some people, I mean, you're very, very, very much carrying a mask per the card in order to just survive the day. Especially, I mean, you've been talking to what could probably be classifiably referred to as unwell people while doing this, and a lot of people are surviving by way of doing that kind of thing. So the features we have a tendency to try to amplify in a lot of cases. I guess if you're trying to amplify them, it's a little bit false in the first place. If you're going out of your way to try to put on an air of any particular thing, like that's why actually that's really funny, because that's why like an interview like this makes a lot more sense to me than a standard one, because I feel like we're exchanging ideas, and that immediately sets me at ease and makes me, we're just having a conversation. because this is were you to sit down and just have a regular conversation with me, this is more what it resembles than I don't know any
authentic.
It is honestly, it's more than you're going to get out of me in a working environment or whatever. I feel like or an environment where I owe somebody something. It's a little bit different. This as a starting point is actually really nice for that. So
really happy to hear that.
Yeah.
It's really interesting what you said at the beginning of the interview as well, is that you're playing for people who need it.
I hope so.
Yeah, and I think that's like when you're at a show like a Ken Mode show, you take off that mask. You don't need to wear it.
I really hope so, because I mean, one of the reasons why I think I found my way to doing this type of thing is because I am somebody who still needs that. I still only really operate on a diet of art for the most part. Like I only really think I'm able to put up with all of this by way of art in all of its facets. I don't really know what surviving a day looks like without participating in that, like as an maybe not outsider's the wrong word, but as like a patron, somebody who I'm still just as enthusiastic. Like I love getting to play. I love getting to participate. Again, I don't know what it like. I don't know what life looks like without doing all of this either. But I still go to festivals. I still I'm still very engaged in art. I think a lot of musicians and a lot of artists start disappearing into self at some point, and that can be really interesting from the outside sometimes, like just kind of caving in on yourself and being so self-obsessed. It has its pleasures maybe as an audience member. I don't ever want to get to a point where I can't appreciate a gallery or film or what have you. I get so into my own thing that I can't be moved by something. So I hope we have that relationship with some of that. It seemed today like we did. I can authentically walk off stage feeling like we engaged, like we bridged that gap, and doesn't happen every time. I mean, I know that we show up with everything we have every time, and if there's someone there who is there to receive it, we try to make that easy on them. I guess we're not subtle. But I know from being on the other end still to this day, my appetite has not lessened one inch on wanting to engage in art. So I hope we're providing that.
Who are you engaging with at the moment?
Right now, I guess there's a lot of different, it depends on what discipline you're talking about. Like I just finished rereading, rereading Blood Meridian.
It's so good.
So I don't know if you heard, but they're making the film finally, and they picked my number one director for the film, which is John Hillcoat, who did. He did The Road, so he's already worked on McCarthy stuff, and I quite like that adaptation, but more significantly, he did a Western called The Proposition.
I don't know that one.
Oh, it's Nick Cave wrote it. And he and that was all the proof I needed to see that he's the only director I think who can handle it. But I just reread that one for the purpose of I wanted to read it one more time before my mind is kind of there won't be. I'm excited to see the film when it's completed, if they get it made. But I'm excited to see the film. But I know that there will be residual effects of having seen the film that I won't be able to walk back. So I wanted to see it one more. Or I wanted to have it my way one more time. So I just finished with that. I've just started reading a Bataille. It's the first Bataille novel as well, and I'm really enjoying it. It is. I've only read his kind of theoretical stuff. I hadn't read any of his fiction before, and I don't know if I was quite prepared for how overtly pornographic it was, which is not to say that I'm enjoying it very much so far, but I feel inappropriate reading it in the van. What's it called? I literally just picked it up from a bookstore 2 days ago. So I've been really, really falling into those in a pretty significant way. And for music, honestly, I've been so hopelessly dedicated to Pulp's This Is Hardcore.
Okay.
Like, I don't know what happened. My brain just broke into that record recently in such a significant way that I feel like there's certain songs on that record that I've been really like... The Fear specifically, the opening track from that, as I kind of think where I'm at as really. I mean, a lot of the time art lets you know, and that song, when it crept up on me, I was like, oh no, I'm living here right now, and it kind of feels as though it was written for you in some capacity, which is unfortunate sometimes because it's not maybe very pleasant, and the fear is it's not. But I've very much I've been obsessed with that, and probably the band The God Machine, who are they're I think they were an American band that actually moved here. They were signed to Fiction Records, and no one seems to know who they are except for me. Maybe that's just because I'm from Canada, but I don't even really. Oh, I know how I found them. I found them by way of Therapy, the Irish band Therapy. I read an interview with them where they were talking about how while they were recording Infernal Love, that they were listening to a lot of Afghan Whigs' Black Love, which is one of my favorite records of all time, and The God Machine, which I'd never heard of before. And so I went and looked them up, and they seem like a uniquely built to please me, and like just such a specific band. But I can understand why they never went over like gangbusters. So I've been listening to a ton of that. So I've been engaging in those. I just saw The Andromeda Strain for the first time. I really enjoyed it. I don't know. I'm watching movie. My day job. I'm a film programmer. So talking about film almost seems like I defer to everything else first because I talk about film so often that it almost seems like too easy.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Did you like the No Country for Old Men adaptation?
I did. I haven't seen it in years, and I keep meaning to go back to it. It was before I had read any McCarthy, so I didn't really have like the weirdness. I think I falsely attributed to the Coen brothers doing a very particular thing, and I now understand that they were just trying to, as faithfully as possible, attack the source material. And I think that book I've not actually read, so I've always had it in my head that I'm going to read the book and then I'll go revisit the movie. But because I haven't read the book and I'm a really slow reader, I haven't seen the movie in probably, I don't know how long it's been out for, 20 years now. I probably haven't seen it in 15.
Wow.
Or something like that. So I should get back to it. I loved it when I saw it, though. Yeah.
So if you're programming film, are you programming like new stuff? Is that?
Yes. I program film at a theater house in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan called the Broadway Theater. It's been open since the 40s. We're an independent nonprofit organization. So we're running pretty much exclusively art house, foreign language,
cool.
and then a lot of rap house or repertory house stuff. So that's just older stuff, and with like a pretty big focus on we're so the city I'm from, Saskatoon, is not particularly big, and it's maybe a fool's errand to be focusing so hard on such challenging stuff, but I guess if they don't want me to do that, they can find somebody else. Yeah. That's what I know. So.
That's really cool. I love that you're programming like the foreign language stuff as well. Like, is there a particular region that you particularly like the films of?
Oh, that I particularly like the films of? Well, not particularly. No, I think that variety. I think what I'm looking for, again, this kind of gets back to this overarching conversation about like the experiential nature of art. I'm looking to understand the world in a new way that I haven't thought of, and so one of the easiest ways to access that type of thing is to have a cultural experience that is uncomfortable for you. And so it's easy to say as you can probably tell, I can be a pretty severe person, so I could just do nothing but watch like Tarkovsky, like Russian film, like Russian literature can be pretty pretty dour.
Yeah.
But or I could spend all my time watching Bergman stuff because the best of his stuff is very depressing in my opinion.
Yeah.
Or at least the stuff I respond to the most. But I try not to get, because that's just committing to neural pathways that I already have pre-existing. I'm already predisposed to like severe depression. I don't need to have that reinforced in my brain, even though if I'm like kind of feeding if I'm feeding all of my unhealthy impulses, I'm only going to watch bleak shit, probably. And I think a lot of people who have seen the programming I do would probably say that I err on the side of that. I try to err on the side of like quality, and I think that most of the time, at least like artistic quality has a tendency to veer a little dark because it's got nothing to do with it has nothing to do with giving the audience what they want, and it's a little, maybe, if not challenging, sometimes even withholding. And I think it's important to put yourself in position to be challenged by art. And I think that there's lots of really great experiences to be had with positive art. Don't get me wrong, but I do think that in the case of like Wim Wenders, for instance, Perfect Days that just came out as a really life-affirming thing, and life-affirming is usually, that's like kryptonite for me. I don't need it, like because it is so often, to me, it has more to do with kind of like telling oneself that they're maybe things are better than they are. There's some lack of there's some disingenuousness about positivity to me, and that might just be being a depressed person. I don't know.
It's the liar, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So I don't try to avoid that type of thing, but I'm very sensitive to trying to not just be an enormous bummer and trying to have different experiences through art. And so I try to not, like I said, I could just give myself a steady diet of Dostoevsky and Tarkovsky and just like do my brain in, and maybe that would be the right thing, but for the time being I'm trying to keep it broad and be something bigger than this awful curmudgeon that I probably am.
Have you seen The White Meadows? It's an Iranian film, 2013.
That name's familiar.
The director got in trouble because he won an award for...
Was he the one that directed I Just Ran his last movie? Because when I saw that at Toronto International Film Festival, and he was not allowed to attend because of all of his trouble. Yeah. What was his last film? Because he filmed it semi-illegally. As I've seen...
I can't remember the name, but The White Meadows is like amazing.
I haven't seen that one. I've seen 2 or 3 of his films though. That drives me nuts. We had a really good run on his last film at the theater. So yeah, that's a good example of the type of stuff I run. I feel like an absolute like cultural slob for blanking on the name of that movie because it's wonderful.
Well, I'm Iranian, I should know.
Yeah, okay, that makes me feel a lot better.
Don't worry,
yeah.
we've all failed.
Yeah.
Should we see what the future holds?
Yeah.
The skills. This is a good card. Sometimes I get really anxious about this card because sometimes it's like prison or death or something really, really negative, but yours is really positive.
This would have been good for the interview insofar as I can like swerve into talking about the how positive, I know how figurative all of this stuff can be, but if we started swerving into like, oh, well, this is a death card and it just means you're going to die, I'd go like, yeah, it's probably right. It's okay. So okay, but that is maybe not the case for me.
Perhaps not. No, the crossbow and the arrows. I mean, the arrows they represent what we're born with and what we develop ourselves. So the ones in the ground, they came in pre-built. These ones you learned over years of like hard work and cultivation. And then the crossbow is like the medium with which you fire them, which for you is more than one thing. Because you have the music and you have the film and the reading, like you refer to it as art, which I really like.
It's all to me housed very much under I would like to see more often the walls between those things dissolve, because I think that in a lot of cases, like somebody says, oh, I only really like comic books, or I only really, I know lots of people through film, I only really, they only really watch film, and I've never understood that. Like, I don't, my appetite, like, which is not to say, like, I think I have something figured out. I certainly don't think I have anything figured out, but my specific appetites are just, they're cross-discipline, and in a lot of cases, like, I don't know, it's probably not helpful from an industry perspective to have me go in and have somebody say, like, oh, what does the new record sound like, and me go, like, oh, it kind of sounds like Francis Bacon. That doesn't really do maybe us any favors with,
I think that, though.
Well, the right person is going to understand what that means, right?
You do sound like Francis Bacon.
Well, I mean, as far as being an inspiration on me, when I close my eyes, the textures I see in are those, which, like,
it's like smeared.
Yeah. Well, smeared, but also, like, have you ever seen any Bacon in person?
Oh yeah, of course. My mum is an artist. I grew up with Bacon.
Okay, so in person when you see his stuff. I've only seen it once.
Fucks me up.
I've only seen it was at what's the big gallery in London?
Tate.
That's
where I saw them as well.
Okay.
The triptych.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the weird white, like, messed up things, and then him in the chair and his head's like fucking.
I saw it in 2008.
I was like 3 years old when I saw it. I'll never forget the first time I saw Bacon.
But okay, so if you never forget that, you might remember this. To me, it looked like I'd been adoring those paintings for years and years and years and years. My wife, I guess she wasn't my wife at the time, but like my now wife, and I took a trip we went to a music festival in 2008 in England, and Bacon happened to be showing. I did a backflip and was like, oh, well, obviously we're going to that, but I wasn't prepared to see so many familiar faces, because he has a lot of those. Look so different in person, and how thick they are.
It's shocking.
And they look like they're going to crawl off the canvas and attack you.
It's terrifying.
It's so powerful. And to me, when I'm talking about music, that's how I want my music to behave. I want my music to feel like it's going to crawl out of the speaker. I want you to feel like ill at ease if you're listening to it alone, like you're worried somebody's in the house all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's the smile, because the smile is supposed to denote comfort and safety.
Yeah.
Like, people smile at each other to show they're not aggressive.
Yeah.
Whereas when you have that, like, Stanley Kubrick style, like, discomfort, that smile can become so creepy and violent, and that's like very Bacon-esque, I think.
Or per something like Kubrick, like something like Alex in Clockwork Orange smiling, for instance, or anything like that. He is in a state of comfort at that point. That's grossly disturbing.
Yeah.
Based on what he's doing, no one should be smiling, and that's a notion that's where art's taking place. That's where I want to know more about that. I don't need to know more about, like, oh, well, we've cooked up this happy experience in a lab very crassly. Like a commercial piece, like I understand their purpose. I just have no interest in it at all. And I responded to everything outside of that notion so young, and that's what I've been chasing down. And so when it comes to interdisciplinary stuff, that's completely. I don't think about, like, oh, I sure wish my band sounded like this other band. In a lot of cases, it's like I would like for my record to give someone the same experience that, like, Ivan's Childhood by Tarkovsky does, or something like that. Like, like that isn't that more interesting?
Yeah.
Again, doesn't do any favors when it comes press time, because most of the time it's like, oh yeah, we sound like we're another band that sounds like Metallica.
They're like, who's Ken?
Like, or that stuff, yeah. Like, it doesn't, that, and that's what people want to know about. But, like, I mean, that's not what creates this. That's not what drives the band. And I always feel like doing an interview like this is interesting for me, because, like, I mean, I certainly, like, even collectively, I don't feel like I speak for all of us. I can only really speak for myself. And if I slow down and start thinking about it, I start getting a little bit paranoid, because I would hate for I would hate for somebody, like I try to be careful and make sure that I'm using more I statements because I don't know that anyone else agrees with this. I can only really speak to what it is that I'm trying to accomplish as part of this larger thing. But to me, I don't. The performance, the extremity of it, and everything like that. I mean, it comes from music only as much as it comes from every other. It comes from raw day-to-day experience, obviously, as well. Because that's otherwise, we're not a fan. This band or any of my other bands, none of it's fantasy based. I'm really excited for people who are preoccupied with I don't know, dragons or whatever, and I like music like that. I love Dio, but I don't think that you could compel me. I couldn't be compelled to sing about a rainbow because I'm not enamored with them. So I'm still thinking about Dio apparently.
I think that's really interesting because I'm a huge fan of Dio. I'm extremely influenced by him. But I know what you mean because I'm always drawn to the Bacons, the messed up stuff. I love Dostoevsky as well because of that bleakness. The fact he wrote a book because he was curious about what it'd be like to kill someone and what would that be like.
Right. Well, I do think that there is in a lot of my favorite art anyway, the amount of ambiguity that's built in, and I think in a lot of cases not even built in. I think that's almost unfair because I think that if you're going to come by it honestly, you a lot of the time don't build these things in. It's inherent in the fiber of what you've created, and I think that a lot of those thinkers have a tendency to be rife with self-doubt and with private ambiguity and uncertainty, and as a result their work all sings that way. It has a lot of that. But I think that outside of just responding to that, I also respond to honesty, and Dio I think was really quite properly enamored with the things he sang about. He was very
authentic.
Even if you hear him speak about some of the things that he, for instance, hearing him speak about the governing principles of the song Heaven and Hell, he's very serious about that stuff. And as long as the passion is not constructed, I think I can get by on almost anything. It might not be for me. It might, by its design, it might not get through to me. But I think that's where at least respect can take place. So
yeah, I hear that. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
We can talk for ages.
I don't know how long this show usually runs for. I hope I haven't not bored everyone.
There's
to
no
death.
rules.
Okay,
we just talk, and that's
cool.
the show.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for coming on. Goodbye, video people.